What's the most ridiculous name you've heard a parent give their kid? Kimance. Her parent is apparently a fan of Beyonce and the Kardashians. I feel so effing sorry for that kid. Worked at McDonald's for my first real job and had a stereotypically southern guy complete with mustache and mullet turn to his young daughter and say whiskey. Hon. What do you want? Double quote. My brain nearly short-circuited. Penny and a nickel. I was at the grocery store not too long ago. One older lady asked me what was my baby's name. Then said her grandson was the same age. I asked her what was his name. She reluctantly said Dolphin, but we call him Finn. Poor woman. Keith. Fucking Keith. For a child. He was 8 when I met him about 5 years ago. I always believed Keiths were born age 35 onwards. I went to school with a chandelier. The worst one I know of personally. There was a guy named DCK Sucker in my phone book when I was a kid. You can find him in white pages. Fatus. He was from Burkina Faso, French speaking, so he did not know how hilarious his name was. I volunteered at a preschool for a high school project. It wasn't in the best area, and most of the kids' parents weren't in the picture, or only had visitation rights with their kids. Sad sometimes. But the kids were fun and cute. Anyway. One little boy's first name was Aero and his last name was Smith. Aerosmith. I teach kindergarten. We just had our first Draco. And the preschool attached to this has a deaneries. Had a Miley a couple of years ago. That's not even her real name, people. I went to college with a girl named Trillian and her brother Seven. They were named before the Seinfeld episode. Trillian was absolutely gorgeous. I'm sure Galileo Galileo's parents were fun to hang out with. Zeus. Pronounced chaos. D. Brickishaw Ferguson. I went to school with a kid whose baby brother was named Chase. Perfectly normal name. When one doesn't consider the fact that the family surname was Kuntz. Yes. Pronounced cunts. Double quote. I was once a school photographer and a parent named her twin daughters Storm and Tempest. My mother is a hairdresser and she cut a young boy's hair this year. His name was Trout. Like the fish. There was a girl at my college whose name was Panther. She had the best sense of humor about it. Though. North as a name itself is alright. But not if your surname is West. Like what the fuck? First, Angel. Middle, Dust. Sexy. I kid you not. Someone thought it a good idea to name their baby girl Sexy. Can you imagine trying to call out her name at kindergarten? First kid, the 2nd of January kid, the 3rd of February kid, March, etc. This list goes all the way to August. I went to elementary school with someone named Choddy. Pronounced Chody. I realized how hilarious it was a couple months ago. KVII Island. Caitlin. The VIE of course being 8. Bought. There's a toddler in the Leeds area called Osama bin. You not. The surname is pretty generic English. So the kid is called something roughly like Osama bin Evans. What were they thinking? Even though they apparently get free video games for life. Someone named their child Davakian after the protagonist of Skyrim. Philopia. My nephew is named Fox. At first I was kinda horrified, but now I see how the name fits him perfectly. Whenever he sees pictures of foxes he says there I am. He is 4 and it is freaking adorable. Ecstasy. Pronounced like ecstasy. Not sure if they misspelled it on purpose, was afraid to ask. Edit, clearly I can't spell either. Andromeda Aurora. The dad was wearing a Star Trek shirt and mom was wearing Doctor Who. Ridiculously good. My friends gave their son the middle name Danger. 7 Costanza. This isn't ridiculous but it did feel awkward. Dot. I had to ring someone whose name was Nigger, I think it's your do, comma, and really hoped it was pronounced to rhyme with tiger or like the river Niger, rather than the other rather unpleasant option. But got so worried about it I decided to call him MR, surname, for the entire conversation. I knew a 10-year-old girl named Fellaini. I don't think the mom thought that one through. I was substitute teaching and there was a kid named Stevia. Like from Jackass. Poor child. There's a law on labor and delivery flaws of most ridiculous names. Likely apocryphal. But I've heard of La A, Ladisha, $K, Monique. The most memorable one I've seen this year was Pthero. My overall best one was a newly arriving family from Georgia, the country, who pulled me aside when they were filling out the birth certificate paperwork. The father handed me a $1 bill and said, "This is how you spell Washington, right? This is our first American kid and he will have the most American name." My heart melted for these guys. Ocean Rose. Sounds like a Yankee candle. Oh. Another one of these threads. Huh. Okay. Let's get this out of the way. La-A, is an urban legend. Orange Jello and Lemon Jello are urban legends. Female, Femali, is an urban legend. Abbott is an urban legend. Shithead, Shetheed, is an urban legend. Edit. Row. Never have I woken up to so many comments telling me I'm wrong. I stand by my skepticism. But I don't know what to believe anymore. Kal-El. It was ridiculous when Jor-El did it. It was much more ridiculous when Nick Cage did it. When we were on holiday in Senegal we met a local named Crevette. For the people who don't speak French his name was Prawn. Not so much a ridiculous name. But years ago I had a student named Nefertari Cannon. I always hoped she became a 1970s blaxploitation style private detective or something like that. I knew some people in school named Trust in the Lord, she went by Trust, and her brother Jesus is my savior, he went by Savior. The names they went by are honestly great. But those full names just made everything inconvenient. A couple of months ago I was doing some sport clinics at schools. I was in a multicultural suburb at one particular school. And happened to encounter the largest 12-year-old I have ever met. He was a Maori. Built like one. And met me at eye level. I'm 5 feet 11. His first name was Snowball. As was his last name. My co-worker's name itself is not quite ridiculous on its own. But here's a story about it. Her mom named her Linus Linus Hill. Her mom named her twin sister Linus Linus Hill. This has caused legal identification problems between them. Among other things. Who would do that to their kids? Late to the party. But what the hell? I worked at a very hipster organic coffee shop. And there was this family living in a yurt in a farmer's field. They'd come every day to buy a single cup of coffee and use the internet for long periods of time. Their children would run wild the entire time because they didn't believe in disciplining their kids. Their eldest kid's name was Ocean. And I hated that little brat with the fire of 1,000 suns. His mother was terrible as well. And totally the root of the problem. But that little shitty was the bane of my existence. I managed to ignore him until one day he pulled on my apron while I had a tray of hot drinks. I didn't spill anything. But I did scare the FCK out of him by saying in a very low but very nasty voice, "Don't you ever dare touch me again." I was almost spitting, I was so mad. Judging by the look on his face. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. I'd like to think he could see the hate in my eyes. That was the one time he sat by his mom and shut up until they left. He was back to being a brat by the next visit. But in the moment it felt good to make him behave for once. TLDR. Kid's name was Ocean. Merry Christmas. I also went to school with a girl named Precious. She often wore a necklace with her name on it. Never could take her seriously. Half the time I felt like patting her on the head. Edit. Never mind. Her name is actually spelled Merry Christmas Catherine Raindrop Brown. Was in a store for handmade imports, hipster crack, Overheard a mother. Freedom. Where is your buddy? Where did you leave justice? Double quote. I was incredulous. Really, lady? You named your twins Freedom and Justice? Whoa.